Welcome back to another episode of Learning Vue.js the hard way, and in this video we were simply just going to pick up where we left off in the last video, because these last two videos, including this video, are slightly different from the rest of the videos in this series, or at least the rest of the videos that have been up to this point in this series, because what we're doing in this series called Learning Vue.js the hard way is that we are learning Vue.js by reading through the documentation, reading through the manual, reading through the official Get Started guide to Vue.js. But I found that in the sort of last videos before these two last videos, including this one, the examples started to become a bit sort of contrived, because we were just throwing on more, we're piling on more and more stuff, and we needed a better example. So that's what we're doing so that's why that's the reason for having a different video last time. So what we did then is that we built this to-do application. So we're now building a simple client-side to-do application, and we'll use that as an example as we keep moving forward in this series. So sorry, the cat is hanging out here on the table as well. Maybe you can see a sort of a tail wagging back and forth. Sorry, sorry about that. So okay, you can't sit here. Whoop. Okay, maybe we'll see. Okay, sorry about the interruption. So there are a few things I want to do today. I mean, the most important one is that we have most of the functionality sorted in this very simple application, right? In that, like, we can, if I add another application, if I add another to do here, such as do. Sorry, okay, the cat is messing around with me. So do stuff, and I press add, it's added here, and you can see that these statistics are sort of updated, and that it says now, okay, 20% is completed because 1 out of 4 is completed. Actually, wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It should say, oh, actually, this was an incorrect calculation. Or, I mean, the calculation is probably correct, right? Because it's 1 out of 4 is 25%, but 1 out of 5 is 20%. So the percentage calculation is correct, but this is not correct. This should say 1 out of 5, not. Now we're displaying essentially the completed items and the uncompleted items. So let's fix that, right? So that's one thing we need to fix. But then the next more important, and also let me just show you what works, right? And then this hiding and showing of the completed to-dos work, and like the to-dos are separated on the basis of whether they're completed or not. And then we have some sort of this simple sort of sanity check, not sanity check, but like a validation, where if you try to add an empty to-do, you can't do that, right? It's just like it doesn't allow you to do that. But yeah, however, what doesn't work, right? So let's list the things that we need to do in this video. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to fix this 1 out of 4, because this should say 1 out of 5, not 1. I mean, now it's like 1 and 4. Let's just refresh. Yeah, we have the same problem in the beginning, or if we refresh the page as well. So I can't really see why I didn't see that in the last video, but whatever. Okay, so that's number one thing we have to change or fix. And then the second thing we have to fix is that checking items now doesn't actually do anything, right? And as we talked about in the last video, we haven't really, these properties are not two-way bound, they're one-way bound. So actually when I click here, in some sense, nothing happens, right? Or nothing happens in the model sense. It's just purely in the DOM, purely in the HTML. So if I check all of these items and then press hide completed so that we force a re-render, then you can see that these things now disappear, because it's like they are now because they were unchecked all the time, right? Just so when we checked them, this was purely like visual, like nothing actually happened in the model. So we need to fix this, or we need to add an implementation for dealing with checked and unchecked, or completing items, essentially, completing to-dos, essentially. That's number 2. And then number 3, I think we should fix this sort of ugliness in the template that we worked with last time, right? We put sort of we did this calculation, so that corresponds to this calculation, right? These statistics. So we should extract these as 3 variables. So this variable, and this variable, or these should probably be computed properties. I think we should do that. But those are 3 things that we should do, right? I guess let's start in the stats end, right? First, let's fix the calculation that was incorrect. Then let's extract them to model properties, to computed properties, and then let's make an implementation, or write an implementation for the adding of to-dos. Actually, sorry, 4 things. One fourth thing is that I would also like us to add sort of a strike-through visual, so that the completed items, when they are completed, they have a line going through them, right? So that we also have some visuals added to this application. And then maybe in the future, maybe we'll do some more visuals. But I think for now, let's not really think about that. Maybe we should also remove these sort of dots, right? These bullet points, right? Because we're not actually looking at a bulleted list. Like these check marks will suffice. So maybe that will give us some styling as well. So maybe let's add that as well. So 4 things at least. Okay, let's start with this, the calculation here, right? Let's fix the calculation. So what I did incorrect is I said completed to-dos length and then remaining to-dos length. I shouldn't have actually said remaining to-dos dot length. I should have just said to-dos dot length. Ooh, and that makes me think that also it's pretty stupid that I'm saying up here remaining to-dos dot length plus completed to-dos dot length, since those are actually just based on to-dos. So actually we could just say to-dos dot length, right? And then we don't need this parenthesis. So let's save that and let's refresh. Let's look at this. So this number here, that's 3, should change to 4, but the calculation of 25% should stay at 25%. Let's refresh and try this. Yeah, so we're still at 25%, but we are now 1 out of 4 and not 1 out of 3. Hang on. Super good. Sorry about that. So, okay. So then the calculation is now correct, right? Let's add some more to-dos just to see if it's still, yeah, it seems to work, right? It's like 1 out of 6 because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 uncompleted and 1 completed, which means 6 in total, which means 17% completed. So super good. So let's now move on to the next step. Check one thing done. Okay, let's make these, or extract variables from these and put them as computed properties. So this whole thing, that whole thing should be one variable. So I guess let's just copy that, right? And what should we call this? This is essentially, yeah, percentage completed. So let's just call it percentage completed, right? And then maybe go over here and say that there's a computed property called percentage completed, which is a function because it's a computed property. So we're designing the getter, and then I'll paste what we had before in, right? And immediately you can see the benefit of doing this because also we get syntax highlighting now, which is clearly like makes it a lot easier to read. And that should work, right? Except of course I have to say this dot completed to-dos now, and I have to say this, whoops, and this dot to-dos, right? Because here we need to specify that we are accessing these variables from this, whereas in templates this is sort of implicit. Okay, so I guess let's do one at a time, right? So let's refresh and see if that works. Still, what did we change? Percentage completed, right? So percentage completed seems to compute correctly. Let's add some more stuff, and it seems to still be adding correctly or computing correctly. Okay, so super good. So that's step 1. So now we have percentage completed. And then we have this parenthesis stuff, right? And then here, I wonder, do we actually want to extract something else? I mean, it's like completed to-dos dot length out of to-dos length. No, so I don't think we want to extract any further variables from that, right? I mean, previously we wanted to do that because my mistake was that I added up. I thought that like the total, I mean, I added up the completed to-dos and the uncompleted to-dos in order to count the number of total to-dos. And then I thought we would need a computed property for total to-dos, but that was extremely silly of me. That was just, I was moving fast and I wasn't thinking, because clearly then we should just use to-dos dot length. And yeah, maybe depending on when I post this video, maybe somebody already pointed that out in the comments yesterday, I guess. Then in that case, thanks. Good catch. Okay. So, okay. What am I doing? Percentage. Yeah, so now, I mean, this is sufficiently simple, so maybe we can now put this on one line. We can't really, right? This is a bit too long, but maybe let's put the parentheses on one line. So we do this, completed to-dos, whoops, out of this many to-dos, right? Something like that. Yeah, 25% completed, 1 out of 4. We could also maybe even do something like this, but then that's funny because that would be double parentheses, right? It's like 1 out of 4. It's like for pages, right? For pages, we usually use that kind of notation, like in documents, right? Like when writing documents. But anyways, this seems fine. Let's keep that. I think, yeah, this probably makes sense. If this sort of, if me switching what am I trying to say? Putting things on multiple lines like that angers you. Of course, we could have done it like this instead. Just have two spans here instead. Why does it not want, like my editor does not really want to does not think that this should be indented. That kind of confuses me like a lot. But anyways, yeah. who cares? But I mean, that would maybe be a more sensible way instead of just having all that white space. But whatever, let's keep it like this. Let's just do normal line breaks, just a parenthesis. Okay, so that works, right? 2 things down, check. What was the third thing? I guess the third thing is then the actual having an implementation for marking things as done. And then we also have this, like, some styles. Let's do the styles in the end, maybe, right? So let's do the more important part, which is marking things as done. So how do we do that? Well, we're gonna need a method, and let's start in that end, right? Let's start in that end. So we're gonna need a method. Let's call it complete to do. Let's just say complete, right? And so there are 2 ways of going about this, right? Either we could access wait, hang on, let's think about this. Either when we click the checkbox, we should invoke the method complete to do. Let's call it complete to do, actually, that makes more sense. Or let's say mark as done, right? Mark as done, that makes more sense. We should call the method mark as done, and either we need to know which checkbox was clicked and then find the to-do that's associated with that checkbox, or we simply pass in the to-do to this particular method, right? Something like that. So let's just assume from this perspective, what if this method gets a to-do passed into it? Here's the interesting part about, in my mind, about like where it becomes, so where sort of React is significantly different from Vue, because Vue sort of embraces mutation, whereas React wants to stay away from, or at least in Redux, right? You want to stay away from mutation, and they're premiering immutability, which again, like, I'm a huge fan of, but it's also like I'm getting quite, what should you say, like, I'm quite intrigued about this journey into Vue, because it seems like if you manage your mutation very, very well, then it might actually be very, very powerful and might actually simplify things a lot, right? But you have to sort of box it so that you're sort of not just mutating wildly. But anyways, okay, so what I wanted to say is that instead of sort of constructing a new to-do item, if we are passed in the to-do item that we actually care about here in mark as done, then setting this to-do thing to, like, marking this thing as true is actually extremely trivial, because all we have to do is just, we have to say to-do.done is true, right? Like, it's just extremely trivial. So nothing with reducers or any of that, right? Like in React. And I'm not bashing on React, right? Like, or Redux, because I think that stuff is super duper good. But like, yeah, this is intriguing. This is some intriguing stuff. So anyways, that works, assuming that we are past the correct to-do. Now, the tricky part is actually, how do we manage to pass in the correct to-do? Actually, that's probably not going to be very difficult, right? Because let's now move over to the template side. Where are we going to bind this? Well, we need to bind this. Think about the visuals, right? When you click the checkbox, that's when you want the event. That's the event that you want to listen to, and you want to bind that function to that event, or bind the method mark as done to that event. So that means we need to listen on the input field. So let's add a listener, right? Let's say, let's put it here in the end, actually. So let's say at, so which is shorthand for vbind to some event. No, sorry, not shorthand for vbind. Sorry. Shorthand for von, right? Von something like clicked. We want to say at. I wonder what the property is here. Maybe it's clicked. Or click, maybe it's checked or something like that. Let's try this out. We need to figure this out first. Okay, so let's say, what if it's checked, right? What if it's just click? Let's say on click, we bind to mark as done. And I guess we should do this, right? We should actually invoke the method. Let's just do something simple, right? Let's do that. And then it's console log clicked here in marked as done, just to make sure that we're sort of wiring up the parts together. Again, like as we've talked about a bunch of times, make sure to always test something very, very simple when you're uncertain about how something works, so that you're not sort of diving into a lot of complexity and then you're no longer sure where the error actually resides when you have an error. So let's refresh. Okay, what if we click one of these things now? Yeah, okay, so it doesn't emit a click property. So I guess it'd be something like checked. Let's try that. No. Check. No, it's probably changed or something like that. Yeah, this is when I should start to read documentation. We're going to try changed, and we're going to try change, but otherwise we're going to have to... No, okay, so let's... how do we do this? Well, events, checkbox, HTML, or maybe I should include JavaScript, right? On click, on focus, on mouse down. Let's go to, do we have like here, right? Mozilla Docs. So we have events change, and we have the event input. Wait, so, but that sounds like change. So I would assume then that change would work, right? Like the event would be change, but this doesn't actually do anything. And I guess it has nothing to do with me actually invoking the method. It probably makes a lot of sense for me to invoke the method, right? Because this is an expression that will be evaluated. What am I doing wrong here? Let's figure this out. Input at change, you want to run mark as done, and we don't have any. I mean, notice we don't have any errors in the we're in the console. We don't have any errors yet. So yeah, okay. So this is maybe when we should read the Vue documentation. So now we're sort of we're going ahead of ourselves, because we haven't gotten to these points in the Vue documentation, but we're just gonna jump ahead a bit and try to figure out how to do this. So I don't think checkboxes were actually discussed in the section on event handlers that we've already looked at. So where is that? Let's see. So handling user input, but that's user input. That's not really... Yeah, but let's see. I mean, they probably did talk about events here. Nope. Okay. Template, syntax, computer properties, and watchers, blah, blah, blah. Let's actually go to event handling here. Okay, so v on... Actually, instead of doing at change, let's just change for v on, just so that we are more sure that, again, like we're reducing the number of things that could go wrong. This shouldn't make a difference though. Oh, wait a minute. I am so stupid. I'm sorry, guys. See, it works, right? Sometimes I'm just so silly. This is why we need components. This is like, hopefully, I mean, we have the same kind of thing in two places, right? We have the completed stuff and we have the uncompleted stuff. And in the last episode, I talked about how we should make that one component and then just render two instances of that component where we're passing different to-dos to these components. So like to the top one, we're passing all the remaining to-dos, and to the bottom one, we're passing the completed to-dos. And then this thing about binding to the done or mark as done method, that thing would happen inside the component, which means that it would, like when I make this change that I made here, when I bind to mark as done, that should happen in both of them, not just in one of them. But now the error was that I bound here, right? I bound to the change event only in the bottom list and not in the top list. So sorry guys, pretty stupid of me. Let's take this and let's only bind in the upper one. So let's go to the input. Let's add that on, right? Okay, v on change mark is done. Let's refresh and then let's look. I mean, we did have an error, so let's see what that is. So cannot set property done of undefined. Okay, but that's good, right? That at least means our event is firing, and maybe that's if I uncomment that line that was having an error. If I just refresh, you can see now we do get the click event. Okay, so this is what we were looking for. Sorry about the mistake. Okay, so what I was interested in is, what if I click down the mouse, drag the mouse out, and then release outside of the checkbox? Does that mean that the change event is fired? No, right? Can we now, just for the sake of being complete, we now bound to change. Can we bind to click? Right? Because initially I tried to bind to click. Can we do that? Yeah, okay, clicked also works actually. But what if then, if I click, drag, and then release? Let's do that. Click, drag, release. No, okay, so I mean, seems we could bind to click as well. But of course, I mean, change makes more sense probably because change is most likely implemented such that if you somehow, in some weird way manage to click, actually, maybe like that, right? If it's, let's say, if the checkbox is disabled, right? No, but then we still wouldn't. Oh, okay, sorry. Now we're binding to change. Let's bind to click, save, refresh. No, okay, I still can't click that. So I don't know. You know, I mean, if you're an HTML guru and you happen to know what the difference is between these, I mean, we could just actually read the documentation, which we should, but that's not what we're going to do in this video because we will get too much of a sidetrack. So let's just actually bind to change, right? It seems more sensible because that's what we're actually interested in. We're interested in when the value of this checkbox is actually changed. Okay, so what was the point? Well, the point was that we can run this method mark as done. Now, the implementation of mark as done, right, as we did it first, is that we want to be able to be passed a to-do and then say, take that to-do and set the property done to true. Now, how do we pass the to-do? How do we know which to-do to pass? Now, that's actually completely trivial, right? Because this input field is in an li that we are constructing for every to-do in the list of remaining to-dos. I mean, notice here, right? For every to-do in the list of remaining to-dos. So that means when we're here, or when we're here, right? When we're at the input or when we're at the label, we have access. We have access to a variable called to-do. Like the variable to-do is in our scope, and that to-do refers to the actual to-do that we're now trying to render. So this just becomes completely trivial, right? It's like, okay, well, I'm going to click mark as done, and to that, I'm going to pass the to-do that I'm currently at, right? Sorry, I'm just like, it just blows my mind how this is too simple. So let's close the console, right? So if I now click here, supposedly this thing is now actually true. We should check that. So sorry, let me open up the console again. So did I expose app or not? No. So let's say const app equals this. Whoops. The view that we are building up, right, in the main.js file. Okay, let me refresh, and then let's do this. Let's say app.todos, and then take the last one. So todos app.todos.length -1. That's the last one, and then we're gonna say .done to ask whether it's done. Oh, okay, sorry, the last one is done, of course. Okay, sorry, let's do this. Let's take the first one. Because this is the last one, right? The one at the bottom is done. Let's do the first one. The first one is not done. Now, if we check that, check it. Oi, noticed even, I didn't even have to do it in this I thought we were going to have to do it in the console, but I didn't think about all the stuff that we did last time. It just immediately jumped down to the bottom section because it was turning checked. Wait, that makes no sense. Since it had now become checked, the filtering of items, right? Remember, this list is a computed property and this list is a computed property. So when we check a particular item here, then that to do, if that turns true, then that means that the filtering of the uncompleted to-dos, that thing will be ignored from that list, right? Like the to-do that we just checked will no longer end up in the list of completed items, but will end up in the list of completed items. Wait, did I say that wrong? It will not end up in the list of uncompleted items, of remaining items, but it will end up in the list of completed items. So it just automatically jumps down, right? And that's sort of the power of having these computed properties. And I think here it's very evident that it was kind of a good decision that we decided to say that let's stick all to-dos in one list so we don't have to worry about pushing things back and forth between the different lists, but simply then just change the property and then filter out two sort of sublists from this main list of to-dos and sort of consider the list of completed to-dos and the list of uncompleted to-dos as let's consider that a computed property, or let's consider that two computed properties. Again, like performance-wise, that's a very bad decision because we have to do all this filtering, like this linear search or this linear filtering of and construct these two lists. Like every time we need to re-render, every time a done property of any of the items in these lists is changed, then we have to do that. But I mean, I don't know. Like now I'm just sort of pulling numbers out of thin air. But like, if you have a list of like 150 to-dos, I would assume that the performance impact of that is like none. No, not none, but like next to none. Like I wouldn't worry about that problem. I would not worry about this problem until I see that there is a potential problem here. Anyways, let's keep moving. So that's super good. I think actually that's probably complete, right? So if I check the last one, you can see 100% completed, 4 out of 4. Maybe we should add a text. We should add a text. We should say something like, let's add another paragraph. p tag, and let's say v-if, let's say todos.length is 0. No, sorry. Remaining to-dos length is 0. That's the expression, right? And then let's close the p tag, and then we're going to say good job, right? Actually, yeah, let's actually make, let's do this. Let's say v-if remaining to-dos dot length is greater than 0, then we're going to render the stats. But if it's 0, then we're going to render this text, right? We're going to say good job, all to-dos done. Or maybe nothing to do, nothing left to do, right? Maybe we should add something more encouraging. We should say, good job. Now go ahead and add some more to-dos to get going again, right? Because you always need some to-dos, right? But anyways, let's check all the items now. 50%, 75%, checking the last to-do. Bazinga, good job. Nothing left to do. And then we add another to-do, right? Like, go to the store. Huh? And now it's 80% completed because we have one to-do left, right? Buy some milks. Right? 67% completed. We have 2 to-dos, right? And if I uncheck these, ooh, check this out. Check this out. This was a problem, right? Notice how we can push things from not done to done, but we can't push things back from done to not done, right? And this is, again, the same problem. Like this is actually, in my mind, this turned out a great example of why you would want to have components here, because these are essentially the same thing. It's just that they are the same component, but we've passed different props, and the different props is essentially, or are essentially the thing that is different between them is the list of items that it's rendering. And then it happens to be that everything in this list is done, and everything in this list up here is not done. But that's just like, who cares, right? You don't have to think about that. That's just, in some sense, you can just think of these as 2 lists of to-dos. So I don't know. It might be that somewhere along the lines of the future videos, we'll actually have to extract that into components because we'll go too mad because I'll make too many mistakes along these lines. But if not, then I think, no, actually, we should do that. Yeah, we're going to have to do that component, but then we might extract more components in the future videos, right? Because I mentioned that I think we're going to try to not extract a bunch of components now, but extract components further on when we get to that, when we get to those chapters. But we're going to have to do this to-do thing. I think probably let's do that immediately. Or let's duplicate the code first so that we know what to do, right? So the error was here that, notice that here we have the input, the checkbox for the upper list. And then here, down here, we have the checkbox for the lower list. And in the top one, notice that they're sort of exactly the same, except that in the second one, we're not binding to the on change, and then calling the method mark as done and passing in the to do, right? Notice that I'm using the word to do here because we called the variable in the iteration, to do here, just as we called it to do here. Right? In both of the scenarios, we use the same name, and that's why I'm using the same name in the second input as well. Let's also switch for, or let's check that works. Okay, so now I should be able to check or uncheck this box here in the list of completed items, and it should jump back up to the uncompleted items. Let's check this out. No. Oh, yeah. So silly of me, right? Because what we're doing is that we're marking as done, which makes me think that, okay, either we should mark, so what we could do is we could add another method which is mark as undone, or we could pass a variable, so we pass the to do and then we pass the value such as false or true, or we just toggle, right? So we could say toggle to do. I think this makes more sense, right? So instead of calling the method mark as done, we call it toggle to do. And then let's rename it here as well. Instead of mark as done, we call it toggle to do. And then we pass in the to do, and then we just say that the done state of the to do is the inverse of whatever the done state is currently. Let's try that out. Oop, I forgot to save the index file. Save that. Let's try this out. Let's refresh. So if I now check something that is unchecked, it jumps down. And if I uncheck something which is checked, it jumps up. So that's a better implementation, right? It's more general because we don't have to think about the booleans. We're just saying you can toggle back and forth between these two states. So that's cool. Okay, and now maybe we should add another special text if I uncheck all items, right? It's like 0% completed, 0 out of 4. Then maybe we should have a special text here as well. So if the remaining to-dos, so for the stats will be shown if the remaining to-dos is greater, if we have more to-dos than 0, if we have more to-dos than 0, and the remaining to-dos are not all to-dos, I'm just thinking, can I express that more simply? Maybe I have to do two things. It just seems stupid. Wait. If we have remaining to-dos, so when are we showing? I mean, because it's like, if I don't have remaining to-dos, so if I express it in terms of what's completed. So if the list of complete, no, okay, so I probably have to do an and. Let's do an and. If you figure out a way of simplifying this, please let me know in the comments. But okay, remaining to-dos.length is greater than 0, and if remaining to-dos dot length is, what are we trying to say? It's not all the to-dos, right? Is not all the to-dos, which means that, let's express that as the positive case instead, which means that all the to-dos are uncompleted. No, are completed. Right. So assuming that completed to-dos, no, why am I being so confused? What I was trying to say is that if all to-dos are remaining to-dos, right. If remaining to-dos dot length is not equal to to-dos dot length, right? So not equal to to-dos dot length. Which is then, I guess, in some sense, I would want to say less than, but whatever. I mean, let's do it that way. So then, if I refresh, this text should disappear when I uncheck all the to-dos, which means we can then add another p tag that says, okay, render this thing. Maybe this I should have put in the conditional episode, but I think that's sort of the next section. So we'll see if we just talk about the stuff that we've already done. But we'll see. Maybe then they can give us some tips, like the Vue guide maybe can give us some tips on how to refactor this to make it more pretty. But let's say, okay, so if the remaining to-dos dot length is all the to-dos, right? Oh, right, actually, remaining to-dos dot length is all the to-dos, which means that there are no completed to-do. Sorry, that's what we're looking for. That's me being silly. Okay, so completed to-dos dot length, if that's 0, right, then OMG, lots to do, get going, right? Maybe we'll add that message. Let's refresh. Then if I uncheck the last to do, yeah, then it's like we get the message, oh my god, lots to do, get going, right? Maybe we should actually, because we have this p tag all the time, I think maybe it makes sense to just use spans for these instead. So let's say that this is a span, this is a span, and these two tags are spans, span elements. Actually, that doesn't really make us a lot of sense. No, let's undo backwards. Let's stick with these P's. But whatever. I mean, you might want to do this in a different way, right? Maybe you would want to say that at least let's sort of wrap these in a div because they are, I'm trying to sort of group them visually or maybe even semantically, right? So that, because these things are sort of the statistics section or like the message section. And also I'm like, having this div makes it more obvious to us that we're probably dealing with something that should become a component further down the line. But anyways, okay. Let's just check. If I uncheck all the items, it says, oh my god, lots to do, get going. And if we check all the items, it says, good job, nothing left to do, because we've checked all the items. I think we can simplify this expression, right? I mean, this was me being silly. So what I should have said is that if the completed to-dos, if all, yeah, exactly that condition, right? If completed to-dos dot length is not 0. Maybe let's add some space here. So like that, right? That makes sense, right? Then we're saying if we check all of them, good job, nothing left to do. Whoops. And if we complete all of the, or uncomplete all of the items, then it says, oh my god, lots to do, get going. Yeah, maybe it's possible to do sort of a switch case here. We'll see in the conditional section, right? Because if we could do that, that would probably be more clean. Because just, or maybe like an if else or something like that. This just sort of feels pretty hacky to me at the moment. So we'll see how we can refactor that later. But okay. If the remaining to-dos are greater than 0. Yeah, okay, anyways, okay. So we've sorted that out. We can shoot things back and forth. Maybe we should extract that component at least, as we said. We should extract the sort of li component, like a to-do item component, so that we don't have to duplicate this code here, because I think that's probably going to be a problem for us in the future. So let's actually construct that component. Let's remove that constant, and then let's just say we want to register a component. So if I remember correctly, it's something like this. We just say view component, and what do? I pass a name, right? We want to register a component called, let's say, to-do item, right? And then we pass in some configuration, and we're going to need to have some template for that, and we're going to need to have some data for that. Now, this might be a bit more complicated, right? Because if you think about it, we're going to have to pass in some to-dos, right? So actually, let's specify the props. It needs to know about some to-dos, and then it needs to know about how to toggle, but that we can solve locally. Yeah, so actually it just needs to know about the to-dos. I think that's probably fine. So it needs to be given some to-dos, and it has some template. And I think I'm going to do sort of a multi-line string here. So I think if I use this syntax, the backtick syntax that you can use for string interpolation, then I think I'm going to be able to put a multi-line string here. So let's delete this, right? Let's delete this li element from the template, from our index.html file, and let's paste that in here. Like, presumably this should work. So here, however, we might have to, no, I mean, this is just a template, right? I think this should work, because now we are saying for every to-do, but we need to say for every to-do in to-dos, right? Because that's the local name of the to-dos that we have now. Let's see now. Actually, I call this to-do item, but I'm passing in a bunch of to-dos. That was my mistake. Sorry, we're doing two things. This is a to-do list, actually, right? That is actually rendering a bunch of items. So then we also need the UL tags, right? We also need this tag, like so. So sorry, I mean, this is the tricky part about having HTML in your JavaScript. So there are ways of specifying the template files in separate files and sort of like .vue files, but we'll get into that in the future, because to do that we're going to need some kind of templating, or some kind of CLI, right? We're going to need some kind of build system, and then sort of the complexity is a bit higher, and I think that's unnecessary at the moment. So let's stick with this for the moment. But something like that just seems to me like that would work, right? We're registering a component to-do list. It takes some to-dos as a prop, and then you can invoke the method to do or toggle to do, but that means we need to move the method toggle to do to the component, because now that's not at all a part of the to-do list, right? Again, like, it doesn't know the sort of outer scope in which it's run. So we need to have a methods object here, like that, and then we put toggle to do in that, and then I'll put the template here in the end. So that means here, where did we have the UL? We had the UL here, right? So that means instead of the UL, we should now be able to say to-do-list, and then we'll pass the prop, and the prop that we'll pass is to-dos, and the list of to-dos, so actually we'll bind, right? So we'll say colon to-dos, and we'll bind that to the completed to-dos, right? Something like that. Yeah, I think that makes sense, right? To-do-list. Let's close that. Let's just try this and see if that works, right? So here we have that. Let's refresh. This didn't work. Do we have syntax errors? I probably made a mistake in registering the component. No. Property or method show completed is not defined on the instance, but referenced during render. Okay, my bad. I forgot to remove this portion. So the to-do list can hide or show itself on the basis of on the basis of the variable show completed. However, this should, of course, because this is a thing on the root element, and because this is sort of a very common thing to do, just sort of hiding and showing. I mean, it's even so common that they have this sort of v-if directive. This is not something that should be the responsibility of that particular component, so I'm removing that, right? because I can actually put that, as we talked about, I think in the last video or in the last video, we can actually put that, yeah, in the last video we talked about how if you add attributes to a component, then that's rendered in the root element, or that's added in the root element of the rendered template. So we can actually add that here. We say to-do list, where we pass in the completed to-dos to the prop to-dos, and then we say vif show, what was it? Show completed? Yeah, vif show completed, right? So we're saying only render this component if you the property show completed is true. So let's save that and let's refresh. We don't have that error anymore, so this is looking good. And then, yeah, I mean, yeah, we have that list here. And we can hide that list, and we can show that list. And if I check something now, ooh, it didn't end up there. We bound to completed to-dos. Let me check if we did get any errors. Oh, we did get an error. Okay. Property or method toggle to do. Oh, okay, sorry. So the error was, of course, that I moved the method toggle to do away from the main methods. And that, of course, means that these upper ones will be broken because they were sort of hard-coded in the main template. Not hard-coded and not in the main template, but like, yeah, but main template sort of, right? They were written into the HTML of the main template. But now we were saying that we move that into the component, which is the to-do list component. So if I refresh and I actually interact with the to-do list component, it should work. Yeah, that jumps up, right? So it seems that we've done it correctly. It's just that we need to turn this upper portion, this upper list, also we need to turn that also into like an instance of the to-do list component. So here we can just render, okay, to-do-list, and we'll bind the to-dos props to remaining to-dos. And then we don't need this vif stuff, right? Because that's just always, this is always going to be visible. And then let's close that, to-do-list, and then save it, and then let's refresh. So, yeah, and then let's check something up in this upper list now, and it jumps down, right? Let's check all of them. Bazinga, good job, nothing left to do. Hide completed, show completed, right? Let's push some stuff back up. Bada boom, bada boom. Oh my god, lots to do. You need to get going, right? Let's check the console. No errors, super good. Seems like we made this correctly, right? So now we have this this component that can be reused. Good stuff, right? So now, hopefully now you're seeing how sort of like, if your mind is sort of going like, aha, this is a, sorry, it's like screaming into the microphone. But maybe your mind is going like, aha, I could do this thing, and I could do this thing, and I could do like let's think about some examples. What if you have categories for to-dos? What if you add the to-do to a particular category, and then you make a computed property to filter out every to-do that match that particular category? Trivial, right? You just add another computed property here, like complete the to-dos. Then maybe let's say filter to-dos is a function, let's say based on some predicate. Let me just say based on some f, right, which is some filtering function. And then you would say something like this: return this.todos.filter based on f, right? So then you would get back all of the to-dos that match that particular filter. And then you could render a bunch of whole different to-dos, right? Like, let's say you have dates on your to-dos. So like every to-do that is older than 6 weeks, right? It's like your long-standing to-dos, right? Or like your very recent to-dos, right? Like you could do all kinds of crazy stuff. And it's extremely trivial because you just construct a filter and then you add another instance of the component. Like notice this, right? Notice I added a bunch of instances here now, right? So then you can see we have that list of the completed components multiple times. Maybe that was a particularly bad example. Let's actually do this. Let's add an HR, so a divider, and then let's add let's maybe say p all to-dos colon, and then instead of binding to completed to-dos, we bind to all to-dos. And then actually let's not do show if completed. Let's show all the time. Let's save that and let's run this. Right? All to-dos. So here's the sort of list of all to-dos. Right? It's like, hopefully you're seeing how this is like extremely flexible, and hopefully you're seeing how, like, regardless of your scenario, most things suddenly just become very, very simple to do if you think about your components properly, if you make them properly isolated. Okay, sorry, let's scrap this all to-dos stuff. Actually, maybe I'm just thinking, why did I even bother? So I shouldn't maybe put I shouldn't maybe have two components. I should maybe just filter and say that if hide completed is true, or if show completed is true, then we just pass in all the to-dos to the component, and if not, then we pass in only the remaining items. So then we can have them as one list and then put the button in the top. Let's actually do that, right? I think that's a pretty that sort of looks better. So let's put the button above the list. Let's remove the list of all to-dos. So now we're back into this scenario where we have like the uncompleted items and then the completed items, and then we can hide the completed items. But let's actually do this. Let's say to-do list is a component that's being bound to the expression if show completed is true, then it's to-dos, but if not, then it's the remaining to-dos. And then we can remove this instance of the second component. Let's try that out. What if that works? Cool. Okay. Now we have the completed here in the bottom. And if I say hide completed, yep, then that's hidden. However, I guess the problem with this is that we are not sorting the completed items into the bottom. So, you know, I think this is going to be overkill. Of course, we could solve that. I think the way to solve that would be to, whenever a to-do is added, or no, actually, let's think of that as visually, right? What we should do is that we should not just render the remaining to-dos, we should render the remaining to-dos sorted on the basis of completed. So that means the completed ones should show up in the bottom or in the top, and in our case in the bottom. But I think that's going to be overkill for what we've currently looked at Vue now. So I'm actually going to go back to this thing that we had before, right here, when it's like we can say hide completed or show completed. Let's actually maybe keep the button up here as well. Yeah, whatever. Let's keep it there so that maybe we remember to do that. But okay, so that's a to-do. That's a thing we should do in the future, but we'll do that whenever we get to a point in the documentation where I feel like, oh, okay, this is the thing that we needed to know in order to figure that out. Maybe that's filters. Who knows? Maybe it won't come, and then we'll just do it at some point. So we'll see. Okay. Last thing, let's figure out the strikethrough. So how do we do that style? So that should be something in the Vue component, right? Because that's the Vue component is a to-do list, and actually the to-do list should probably, the to-do list is a component, but it should probably be comprised of a to-do component as well. So like a to-do list renders multiple to-do components. That would probably be a sensible way of approaching it. For now, we're just going to keep it like this, and then we'll see what happens when we read on and we sort of increase the abstraction and work a bit more with this application. But okay, what we need to do is that we need to add a style property here, right? So let's just actually let's do this sort of computed property. Let's use that way of expressing it, right? So let's say, oh, wait, I'm trying to maybe sort that out. Maybe like this, that would make more sense. I'm trying to get more in, or not make the line as long. So maybe we do it like that, right? So this is the input tag, the checkbox, and then, no, wait, let's think about this. No, sorry, actually, let's go back, because the thing that we need to strike through is the label, and the, what we wanted to do also is we wanted to remove this period, or this bullet. So the bullet is probably that we should probably remove on the li, and the, or on the ul. I don't really know. Let's say, it's like list item none or something like that. Let's figure that out first. Css styling. Why always W3 schools? Okay, here, developer Mozilla. List style type CSS, blah blah blah. Do we put that on? What do we put that on? Hello? Okay, probably doesn't matter. Let's actually just, so maybe we could just, that we don't really have to think about that. We could just hard code. We could just put that here. We could just say list, what was it? List style, sorry about the small font. List style type, right? List style type :none, right? And this needs to be part of an object. That's being passed as a value to the attribute style, which we talked about in the last video. So let's look at that. Does that work? No. List style type none. So maybe that should not be on a UL property. Let me take that, let me grab that and put that on the li instead. Does that work? No. Okay, so I'm misunderstanding something. List style type. Let's search for none here. Should I say none? Yeah. List style type colon none. I'm so confused, man. Class normal, shortcut, list. Yeah, they put it on the UL, or they put it on the OL, right? But that's the same thing for us. How strange. Style. Let's try that out. Let's just look at what's being rendered in the DOM, right? Let's inspect the HTML. So if I inspect that, let's look at the UL. We didn't get any. Why did we not get any style out? Do I have to say bind like that? Yes, most probably. My bad. What the app? What just happened, my friends? What just happened? What if I just say empty object here? What am I messing up, right? List style. Okay, let's not say none. Let's say some kind of upper alpha. Whoa, oh my god, so much stuff. Okay, let's say disk, right? Disk. Refresh. Oh, okay, sorry, we have an error. This is why. My bad. Sorry. Okay, compiling template, blah, 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 blah. Invalid expression, raw expression, style, list, style type. Ooh, sorry. Yikesies. Yeah, this is tricky. This is going to have to take some getting used to. I mean, this is a CSS property, but because Vue is sorting out the CSS for us, we should use a camel case version of the list style type properties. We should say list style type like that, right? In a camel case fashion, and then they will convert that to kebab case to sort of dash the limited. And then they're saying, okay, property or method disk is not defined on the instance. Right, and that's of course because this is not a string, because since we are now binding, Vue is thinking, okay, but if you're binding, then this thing needs to be this thing is a variable, right? Let's refresh, and now, yeah, okay, maybe these are disks, who knows? Let's now go for none. Yeah, and now they disappear. Okay, that was a long time coming. So yeah, and then maybe there's some indentation thing that we need to sort out, where it's like, I don't know how to solve that, whether it's like margin none or like margin 0. That's not it. Oh, sorry. Also, I mean, this error, we need to surround that as a string, but whatever. I mean, yeah, let's actually do this. Now I get pretty angry, right? Because this is starting to look really ugly. So let's say we bind the style property to the computed property. Let's say, let's say list style, right? Or maybe even to-do list style, right? And then let's add a computed property. Actually, we don't need to have that as computed property. We could just have that as data. So methods, and then maybe let's say data, comma, and then let's say to-do list style, and that is, I mean, it's a function that returns an object. So I guess let's just do this, right? So to-do list style, no, it's not a function. Sorry, it's not a computed property. It's just an object, right? And then we are saying that, what was it? List style type is pointing to the string none. And then we potentially want to add some more stuff, but let's just make sure that works first. It doesn't work. List style type colon none. To-do list style, we're binding to to-do list style. That's an object. List style type none. Okay, this seems to be, it seems I did the correct thing, but let's see what's being rendered out. Sorry, so much confusion. Let's try to figure this thing out. What did I mess up here? Okay. The data option should be a function that returns a per instance value in component definitions. Aha, interesting. We haven't gotten to this point yet. That was very, very interesting, actually. So let's so the data actually needs to be a function, right? Or maybe I should really say function like this, right? So that returns an object. Let me just blindly do this without thinking about why that is, and then we'll talk about why that is when we get to the component section, because I assume that's the point, right? Like, there's probably some point to that, but instead of me guessing, let's wait and let's find out when we get there. Okay, so now we get that thing away. Then let's maybe just remove the let's say list indentation. Remove list indentation CSS. Let's just quickly see if we can figure this out, and then we'll removing UL indent with CSS, and then we'll move on. Padding. Okay, so padding is 0. Padding colon 0, right? Let's do that. Let's refresh. Yeah, and now it's all the way to the left. Okay, so that looks fine, right? That looks okay. Now let's sort out the strike through thing. So how do we do that? Well, what we have to do, now we have a to-do list style here, but we also want maybe a to-do item style. Or actually it's a to-do item text style, because we probably don't want to strike through the checkbox, but maybe it doesn't matter. Let's try that out, right? Let's assume that we can put that on the to-do item style. So I guess, what is that, like text decoration? I guess text decoration, and I would guess it's called strike through. Let's just guess and see if that works. And then we bind the to-do list item, so we bind the li, we bind the style property to to-do item style. Let's save that and let's refresh. Ooh, errors, so many errors. Let's see what's going on. Console, unexpected token. Same error again. Yeah. So what I did wrong. No, wait. What did I do wrong? I thought there was. Yeah. Same error again. To do item style. We shouldn't say text decoration with kebab case like this. We should say like this, right? We're using camel case, and then Vue will convert that to CSS kebab case for us. Sorry, guys. Okay, more errors. Love me some errors. Okay, strike through is not defined. Ooh, no, sorry, not interesting. I'm just confused. Okay, it should be a string. That was the error. Sorry, not like so. Okay, strike through. I wonder if I spelled that correctly. Okay, so that doesn't seem to work, but let's just see if it was added at least. So to the li element, we don't actually have that. Did we bind? We bound the li element to have to do item style, and then we said text decoration is strike through. Strike through. Yeah, okay, so let's no, wait, but why wasn't that added? But maybe you can't add arbitrary properties. Strike through CSS. Let's just see what that, like, how do we do that? Line through. Okay. Line through. Okay, that's the way it should be. Still not added. Li, still not added. What am I doing wrong? Style is bound to do item style, and then in our data model we have to do item style, which is an object that specifies text decoration. Let's just say color red, because I'm sort of confused now about why. Yeah, okay, we do have I don't know what happened, dudes. I probably just forgot to save. Sorry about that. I probably just forgot to save. It seems it worked when we were switching to line through. Right? Text decoration is equal to line through. Of course, now we're striking through all of them, which is not the thing we want to do. So let's look at that in a moment. But actually, something which was pretty interesting struck me. Let's change this line through value to like foo, right? Which is clearly an invalid value. Let's refresh. And actually, you can see they don't actually add the style text decoration pointing to foo, right? Which totally answers the question I posed in the last video. No, sorry, last video, where I said, I wonder if they have sort of a list of all combinations of, or essentially if they're checking CSS syntax, right? If it's like, well, they're just converting valid CSS, valid CSS expressions expressed where the keys are expressed in camel case, they're only taking those and then converting them to kebab case, or whether they're just simply blindly taking everything that you express in camel case and convert that to kebab case and assume that you figure out, or assuming that you are expressing valid CSS. That's not what they're doing, right? They're actually checking that you're expressing valid CSS. Like if I say property foo equals value bar, then that's completely invalid CSS, so they'll just ignore that for you, right? So binding to style and binding to class in terms of CSS classes, that's arbitrary, because then they can't know what your valid classes are, right? So they're just saying like, do whatever you want, right? But with style, there's a finite set. I mean, there's a syntax of of things that you can, there's a finite set of things you can express. Maybe actually there's an infinite set of things you can express, but there's a set of things you can express. And if you try to express things outside of that set, they'll simply ignore it because you're expressing invalid CSS, and then they help you by making sure that doesn't end up in the file that you are producing, or in the HTML file that you're producing. So that's pretty cool. That answers that question for us. That was cool. Head scratcher. Okay. Anyways, now let's go back to line through. Let's refresh, and now we have everything line through'd. How do we make sure that only the checked ones are the ones that are sort of line through'd? Well, then we need to turn this into a computed property, right? Now it's part of the data, but we need to make it a computed property. So let's add computed here, and let's paste that property in here. Whoops, let's format that, and let's say, okay, to do item style now needs to be a function that returns this object that contains the value text decoration. But then we're going to say text decoration, let's think about this. Either, yeah, okay, so we could do this in multiple different ways, but let's actually just use the ternary operator here. So we say if, let's see, this is a to-do item. Interesting. This is actually, okay, right? So if we were dealing with a separate component for to-do list, this would be more trivial, because then we could access the prop to-do, which is this particular to-do that we're at. Now, since we are not separating the component to-do from the component to-do list, which we should probably do in the future, since we are not doing that, we actually need a function here, like a method. Oh, sorry, we already have the methods key declared. So let's just move that into methods, right? Because now we need to specify which to-do item is this a style for, right? So that's pretty interesting actually. And then if you think about that, toggle to do will also, that implementation will also be simpler if we move to if we construct a separate component for the to do. But again, let's do that in the future. So let's stick to this, right? So let's say, okay, toggle to do, and then to do item style. So to do item style also takes some to do as input, and then we're going to say, okay, well, if this to do done is true, then the text decoration is going to be none. No, sorry, if it's done, then it's going to be line through, but if it's not, then it's going to be none. I think none is a valid text decoration. Let's try that out. So let's refresh this. Do we have errors? No, okay, sorry, this is just because, let me show you. This is because we were treating this as a computed property to do item list, or treating it as data, whereas now it's actually a method. So when we say bind the style to do item style, we actually now need to say bind the style to do item style and pass in the current to do that you're rendering. I guess this should work. Let's refresh. Yes, right? Now we are checking this item. If I uncheck it, there's no strike through, and it's up here, right? It's like there's no line through, right? And yeah, I mean, it sort of works. We're pushing these back and forth. Now, of course, there are many different ways of doing this. You could also say that maybe what would make more sense is that when we're rendering these two different lists, you could also just put the style attribute on those lists, because we know that everything in the completed list and everything in the uncompleted list will like, we know that everything in the uncompleted should not be line through'd, and we know that everything in the completed list should be line through'd. But actually, I think the decision that we made now makes sense, because that means that we also can use this again, like it's a very general component, right? You can also print, as we were doing before, all the to-dos. So if we just print all the to-dos like this, then you can see we're mixing sort of the checked items and the not checked items, right? Up here they're jumping back and forth, but down here they just switch from being checked to not being checked. Pretty cool stuff, eh? Pretty cool stuff. Let me just, one final thing that struck me is, do I need closing tags for the components? It seems that it's sort of rendering anyways. Let me just do this, right? I'm wondering if that's allowed. No, that doesn't really, no, of course, that doesn't seem to be allowed, because then, yeah, I was just assuming, like, or I was just thinking maybe self-closing is okay, but that would be implicitly self-closing. What if I do explicitly self-closing? No, it's still a problem, right? So we need to do it this way. Yeah, okay, Just a side note, just wanted to know. Okay, so pretty cool. I think let's wrap up here. Let's remove that to-do list. Let's see if we have anything left that we were about to do. We were saying, let's do the strike through. Let's remove the bullets. Let's fix the stats here. Let's make sure that you can actually toggle things back and forth between completed and not completed. I guess you can still add to-dos, right? Like we add another do thing, right? Important, important. Add, right? Super important, cool. And then you can check these and uncheck these and all that. So this seems to work super good. So I guess now we actually have a pretty sensible application, which clearly suffers some design flaws, but not at all as many design flaws as we had in the last video. And ooh, actually, sorry, let me do one final thing before we wrap this up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up another split here, and I'm going to open up a new file, and I'm going to call this file todo-list.js. And then I'm going to take this whole component and move it into that file, right? Paste that in, remove those empty lines. So now we actually have 3 files. We have the todo-list.js, we have main.js, and we have index.html. And then here in our HTML file, right, in our index.html file, before we load main.js, we also now need to load todo-list.js. I think this would work as well, right? It behaves exactly the same way, but we're sort of starting to structure our code a bit more so that like every component should be in a separate file. Let me just do one final styling thing, which is that the to-do, let's say the to-do item style should have a, let's say color of, like let's say something like this color. Maybe that's very light. That's too light. So like let's do 888. Yeah, so now no, wait, the completed items is what I meant. Sorry. To do, done, then this, otherwise black. Like so. This is, I guess this is the point where I would feel that it's questionable. It feels like I'm hard coding in colors, which doesn't feel like a very smart thing to do. Sorry, I forgot a comma, like that. And then yeza. Very good. Now those are great. Could be a bit more gray, so let's say 555. And then I will drop this, I promise. No, sorry, wrong direction. A. Yeah. C. Yes, okay, now I'll drop this, right? So they're sort of grayed out when they're done. That looks cool to me, right? Super duper good. So now we have a sensible application. We have a pretty sensible application. We can use this application in the upcoming videos, and then we're going to keep reading through the documentation and use this as a template for understanding the rest of the parts. Thanks a ton for watching. I'm glad to have you along. Share this video with a friend if you want to sort of learn together with somebody else. Makes a ton of sense to learn together with friends as usual, right? Hit the like button if you appreciated this video. Ask me if you have any questions, and I will see you in the next one.